All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Drika Sanke, the Maties Rugby head coach. Welcome to the Maties Rugby Alumni Office webinar. I want to thank the panel of old Maties players, legends who made a big impact at the club for availing themselves. Thank you also, Neil the Kock, for being the MC. So the idea of tonight is to get former players together and just chat about memories, the memories made, and a little bit about where all these guys are now. Where they find themselves. We have players from different generations. I think Norts is the only one from the 90s, though. The great thing about Maties Rugby is that the actors and circumstances might change, but the spirit stays the same, even today. It's still students who are good rugby players, wear the jersey with lots of pride, and enjoy the environment at the club, playing a sport they love for a team they love. The second reason is a campaign that the Alumni Office is running. #TrainForFees. Hans will tell you a little bit more about that. Hans Skriba is also an old Matie player. He played 97 games for the club. I think that's even more than Norts. And he's now managing the fundraising in the Development and Alumni Relations Office. So over to you, Hans.
Yeah, how's it? Good evening, everyone. And again, as Drika said, thanks for popping in and for joining us. Niles, your camera is still on, eh? So we can see you talking. But yeah, I think as Drika was saying, the idea of getting together was for two reasons. The one was to get some old Maties together to tell some stories, to reminisce to some of the good times the guys had in years gone by. And then the second reason was to link that this Matie rugby family that we're all part of, some of us just older than others, but to link this Maties family and try and do something for the current generation of players that are there, and that's why we got the Train for Fees campaign going, which was a collaboration between Maties Sport and the Development and Alumni Department of the university. And the idea behind it was specifically to assist rugby players in the sense of Maties Rugby, but also other sporting codes, specifically student athletes who are struggling to pay their fees this year because of the impact that COVID-19 has had on their lives, on their family lives, or in some instances also on the companies that have sponsored some of these players. So there's a real need for a number of players for assistance, and that's why we started with this. And what's been great about it is that since the beginning of June, is that a number of coaches and players in the various codes, in actual fact 108 players, coaches and supporters have joined this campaign as fundraisers. And as we stand at the moment, we're just under R1 million that has been raised over the last 2.5 months. And Henlo, maybe if you can throw that Train for Fees slide on, just to show that the what the Train for Fees stands for. And we won't harp on it too much tonight, but I think one of the important reasons for getting the guys together is also to motivate chaps to be able to put something back, and to give the players from this generation the opportunity, firstly, to finish their year, 2020 academic year, and pay their fees, and then secondly, to be able to play next year. So Drika, as head coach, has also run a lot. So has his coaches, Marius, Norman, Kabamba, and a number of players. And at the moment, with this amount of just under R1 million that we've raised, we will be able to help 30 players or 32 players, and we're aiming to get enough money in the next 6 days to help a further 15 players. So a whole team, and everyone who's sparkling in tonight and is listening, you guys are more than welcome to chip in and to make a donation to this Train for Fees, and to ensure that the next generation of Matie players will have this type of webinar in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, and will be able to look back on a fantastic career at Stellenbosch University. So thanks for joining us tonight. And just the house rules, if you guys can just remember to keep your cameras off and your mics off, and then if you want to post questions, is to put them into the chat box, which we'll manage, and then we'll feed through some of those questions to Neil de Kock, who will be our MC tonight. And Neil and each one of you guys on the panel, thanks for making the time tonight. And hopefully you have a lot of fun as you talk about Maties Rugby and your time at the university. So I'm finished for now, and I'm handing over to Neil de Kock, former Maties scrummer of Province scrummer of Springbok scrummer of Saracens. And Neil will take over and go further from here as MC for tonight. Thanks, chaps.
Thank you, Hans. Hello, everybody. Very good to welcome you to this webinar tonight. Just to be honest, I got a bit of the short end of the stick here. Jean de Villiers was supposed to be here tonight, and then he unfortunately pulled out and left me with the job. So I'm sitting in a room. A lot of you will feel for me because I'm sitting about 2 meters away from Chris Norton. So the reason behind that is that I can mute him when I need to, so we can at least have a bit of control around tonight's event. Listen, before I introduce some of the guests, as Hans said, I think it's about reflecting on times with Maties and the importance that the memories we made and the relationships we all built over that time. And I think a testimony to that is the Maties alumni. If you just look at that group and some of the stories and some of the chats that goes on there, it's fantastic. And we're talking about 20, 25 years ago that some of these things happened. What I'd like to do now is to obviously introduce you to some of the guys on the panel. Some of you guys will know them well, and then just pick their brains a bit and talk a bit about their times at the club, look at some stories, and then also obviously not to forget that we're here for the Train for Fees initiative, as Hans mentioned, and we're really trying to do our best to get guys to contribute and push us up to that R1 million mark and look to finance those 15 other players. So without further ado, I think, why don't I start with a certain Mr. Morgan Newman. I hope he is on the call. Yeah, Morgan, are you with us? Morgan Newman? Anyone?
Morgan just messaged me now, Neil. He's
good start. Okay, Sam Mabombo.
Waiting to accept him into the webinar.
Sam, are you there?
Online. Yeah, good.
Excellent, Sam. Listen, just a bit of a background for those who don't know Sam. Just a quick rundown. Junior Club Player of the Year 2009. Played in the Varsity Cup 2010 to 2012. Played 21 Varsity Cup games. Played in the Junior Box in 2010 as well as the SA Sevens. In 2011, he was the Senior Club Player of the Year as well as representing the SA Students. And just recently, Sam, you were voted into the Maties Team of the Decade. Did you know that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, Sam, welcome. It's really good to chat to you. You currently reside in the Eastern Cape. And listen, maybe I can start off by asking who, if you reflect back on your time at Maties, when you came into the mix, it was quite a baptism of fire for you, some of the coaches that are involved and how your opportunity came about?
Yeah, well, straight after high school, I went on a gap year. I was still a year young, so I wanted to explore a bit of the world, maybe just play rugby for the entire year. So I went over to New Zealand, was a stooge over there, to the Murray Mexted Academy back then for about 2 weeks or so. So once I'd come back to South Africa the following year, my coach was Kirky. Back in the day, he was the under-19s coach. And from then, in the following year, my 2010, then Sean Rue was the coach for the first team.
Excellent.
We had great guys, a great bunch of management over there. We had Warren Adams, who's gone up to the national teams in 7s and 15s for the Springboks in terms of condition coaching. We had Roseanne Shago was our physio. Just had a great bunch of people, forwards coaches, backline coaches. A lot of people were really good people.
Yeah, fantastic. And when we spoke earlier, you spoke about a vibe. There was always this vibe at the club, which sort of attracted you to want to stay and not want to leave.
No, for sure. I mean, it's the biggest rugby fraternity in the world. So if you back yourself as a rugby man, that's the place to be. I mean, it's always held in high esteem. I mean, the pedigree of people just on the panel over here just speaks volumes about the institution. So it's always an attractive place to go to if you love sports.
Excellent, Sam. Listen, it's great to have you with us. I'm going to put you on a little bit of hold here. I'm going to introduce some of the other guys, and then we're going to have a bit more of a group chat, and then open up to the guys in the webinar to ask a few questions as well. So is Morgan with us now? Morgan? No, Morgan's still not there. Craig Barry? Are any of our guests here tonight? Sam, it's
backline as usual is missing in action.
Is Craig Barry there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you doing, Neil?
You are there, Craig. How are you? Can I see you? There you are. Welcome, Craig. Good to have you. I'm sure everybody knows who you are as well. Listen, you're probably just off the training pitch up there in the Free State at the moment.
Yeah, we just got off the training pitch.
Okay, excellent, man. Listen, just a bit of a background on Craig. Played Varsity Cup 2013 to 2017. Played 41 Varsity Cup games, scoring 16 tries. 2017 was the Dream Team Captain of the Year, as well as the Player of the Year in the Supersport Challenge. And Currie Cup debut 2017, as well as your Pro 14 debut, and then made your Super Rugby debut a couple of years ago. So it's really an honor for us to have you with us, Craig. And it's right that... am I correct in saying that you played under Harvey's and Chris Rousseau in your time with Stellenbosch, and now find yourself with Harvey's again currently?
Yeah, when I started my career at Maties, when I was given the opportunity, I started with Chris Rousseau as the head coach. And we had really good times. We was in a building phase as well. And then once he left, Harvey's Ferry came in, and we had some really good years as well. And yeah, the only thing that's still haunting me from Maties is not being able to win the Varsity Cup, and being such a successful club. I think in my time there, the players that I surrounded myself with, we really built a good culture at the club, and guys were fortunate enough to win the years after that. But yeah, really good experience with those two coaches.
It's fantastic, man. It's good to hear. And am I correct in saying that there's quite a few of you familiar faces around in the Free State parts now? You guys have played together at Stellenbosch.
Yeah, they say Stellenbosch moved down to Bloemfontein, but yeah, that's on the lighter side. But yeah, there's a couple of ex-Matie players and also ex-Matie's personnel that's also involved with the Free State Cheetahs at the moment. So it's really good. It's familiar faces, and it's really good to to be able to be surrounded with familiar faces.
Wonderful, man. Craig, listen, it's nice to see some young faces on the group here. So I'm going to move on to some of the older faces quickly. And before I try Morgan, I'm going to introduce, or I don't have to introduce, I'm going to welcome Schalk Burger. I know he's on the group, probably very relaxed with a beer in his hand. How's it, Scala? How are you, man? Good to see you. Listen, how many years ago can you even remember playing and representing Stellenbosch back in the day?
Very vaguely, Nelson. I've taken a few blows to the big old melon since then, but 2002, and you can't forget Norton. Every time you play with Norton, you know, your ears are on fire by the end of it. Not even by the end of it, or half time. And remember the coach as well. I wasn't there for a long time. I sort of popped through the ranks very rapidly. You know, entered Stellenbosch in the cricket bursary, and then sort of fell into rugby, or rugby found me. You know, I was playing for Eendracht in the first year's tournament. And then the first introduction to Maties Rugby was when I was asked to go on the Bloemfontein, but as a sub, because under 19 Junior Vics and Junior Maties, the games were overlapping, and they wanted someone to cover, you know, everything on the front, in the pack of forwards except the front row. So I sat on the bench, and you know, as you do, on the Bloemfontein at about 8 to 12 lagers the night before, and then, started getting funny looks from the coaches, who was Wynand Pienaar and Doc Jannie Brink. So I decided to make my way to bed, and then unfortunately the guy who was captain, Kobus Smith, he's a boys' eye captain the year before as well, he fell ill, and then all of a sudden I was straight into the firing line, starting at number 8 with Justin Melk and Bossy Clark, and that was the start of what happened to be a very eventful year for me at Stellenbosch, especially Maties Rugby.
Yeah, brilliant. And I suppose we're going to get to those train stories in a little bit when we bring Norton onto the call. But one thing I do remember is you were probably 18, ironically on a cricket scholarship, but finding yourself on the rugby pitch as a lighty, playing, obviously almost represented rugby then. And your nickname, do you remember your nickname? Being shouted at you from the stands. Norton, Voor in die Koor.
Wilson, I'm obviously still at the long blonde hair, and Wilson after the movie Castaway, Tom Hanks' ball, you fell in love with, and I kept on hearing Wilson all the time. But you're right, Nalzi. Got there, actually was playing cricket for Wellington in my matric year. So Wellington first team, we played against Maties and opened the batting, made a bit of runs, and then Adrian Holstock, who's now the professional umpire, he was player coach at Maties' first team at the time, and he dragged me across early, so I started playing there in November. So I've got a few extra months in Stellenbosch, and from a guy coming from Paarl and Wellington, there's a lot happening in Stellenbosch, So moved into a friend's apartment and then into Eendracht and got the nickname Wilson, I mean, pretty much in that Bloemfontein, obviously a few beers before, and then up we played junior Maties, and then on the way back, I got dragged in by all the older boys. It seemed to be a theme of my career at the bar, and then immediately turned into Wilson. Thanks, Nort.
I tell you what, we're going to speak to the young boys in terms of these train trips, and just to compare whether these train trips have taken on a similar vein or whether it's a little bit different these days. So we'll touch on that with Craig in a minute. But listen, if I can now invite and welcome the man we've been speaking about, Mr. Norton, who I can see across the hall from me. Nort, hello.
Now, how are you, boy?
Can we see you? Here you are. Chris
in
Norton,
all my glory.
In all your glory, in your jersey, your Maties final jersey. I was going to go through your vital statistics in terms of your achievements, but it's not as long as the rest. I don't know.
No, mine's very short. I think most of my achievements were made in the Maties club afterwards, including picking up Sculler's Boot, who we named Esa Nwettel for the evening because he was wearing those green tracksuit pants. And as Sculler informed us the next morning, he had to carry him up his stairs and put him to bed. His dad wasn't too amused after that one. But there was a lot of achievements made there. And I think a lot of good times had. But
Nort, you are, listen, you've probably shed more blood for this club, but you have more Maties blood in your body, I think, than anybody or most people on this group. And I think the Maties alumni is a good example of that. The way you network and keep this group together. Your memory, I don't know whether you make up half the stories or whether actually the memories are fair dinkum, but you go back to Argentinian tours, I think Japan, and train trips up to Bloemfontein, which I do remember well, but you've got an unbelievable amount of memories. Are they true? Some of the coaches that you've been through, some of the best and worst. We want to pick your brain, and we want to share a couple of those stories with you tonight.
Yeah, I pretty much went through sort of 10, 11 years. So I think most of my coaches got a lot of grey hairs. And then a great guy called Ian Kirkpatrick arrived on the scene, and he took us to another level. I think the guy could just relate to people. I think he could relate to students. We had those golden years which you experienced, Scully experienced in club champs, and I think he had a massive effect on many people's lives. So I went through a lot of coaches, but I think he was probably one of the most memorable. I mean, the people that were around us, Davy Snyman, Nick de Blanche, Wynand Pienaar, all these people played a massive part of it. And then the heart and lung of the place, Jakkels and Kock, who can ever forget these characters that played a vital part in our lives. So a lot of big names that people will remember, but a lot of people that are behind the scenes making stuff happen, making sure the admin was always great, making sure there was beer in the change room afterwards, more importantly, and just giving people probably the best all-round education that a person will ever have. I mean, we went to Argentina twice. We went to Wales. We went to England. We went all over the world. You know, if you played for Maties Sevens, you went to the Sevens in Scotland every year. So the club was really spoilt in terms of tours, and that's what really made the memories.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Norta. And I think everybody, there's one name that rings in everybody's ears, particularly is Kock. And I remember it as a lighty, as a 18, 19-year-old just out of school, with this old man shaking your hand and say, come on, Pelly, you had to do a job. And the impact that he had, I think, on every student that played under him, and everybody who's listening here will agree, I'm sure. But as you said, you went through that list, and, Kapoke and Yakels, these guys are still around. And, I mean, they still have such a passion for this club and for the people involved. And I think that goes a long way in creating the success and the sustainability to the club. And I'm quite interested to hear, like Craig, Barry, to you again, when I was young playing, I had the good fortune of playing with guys like a Sean Roux, with Charles Holwell, with Louis Blom, with Chris Norton, guys who were 8, 6, 7 years my senior. How's it changed now, recently? Because obviously the way I see it is that the Varsity Cup guys are far younger. So a lot of you are almost similar age, that you don't necessarily have that Chris Norton or Louis Blom, that 28, 29-year-old playing with you. Did you get to experience it, or is now your first time really in a cheetah setup, really experiencing older players like that?
Yeah, my time at Maties, I think it's actually turned around now, because you actually play with younger players. And as I got older, 23, 24 years old, which is not old in today's life, but I started playing with younger players, 19, 20, 21 years old. So most of these guys are still playing provincial rugby. So I don't have an example. Like I played with Louis Blom. I was coached by Louis, and I had great times with him. But it certainly turned around. And as you get to a professional setup, playing professional rugby, you play with older players. I mean, in our setup now, we have Francois Steyn, which is an older player now for me. I used to watch him as a lifer on TV. But yeah, he's one of the old guys we have in our team at the moment.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig. Listen, guys, before I'd like to just remind everyone who's listening to please put some questions to the panel when you can in the text box on the side. And while you do that, I just want to invite our last panel guest, Morgan Newman. Are you with us now? Morgan? Okay, apparently he is with us. Morgan, I don't know whether they've kicked you out because you are now the Hamilton's coach, first team coach. So that's probably why you've been muted and we can't hear you. But while Morgan gets on, he played Varsity Cup for Stellenbosch between 2004 2010, has amassed about 100 caps for the university. Went to Helderberg Corsace. He was one of those guys like Sculler, played straight out of school. Played under Sean, earned his first cap under Sean as a first team player for Stellenbosch. Still remembers fondly the pink jerseys that you trained in, Morgan. So hopefully by the time I finish speaking, you're going to answer me.
I think Neil has just lost contact, so he'll be back just now.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Excellent. All right, guys. Okay. Just a reminder again. So please, if you feel free to ask some questions to this panel, and we'll keep this taking over. So, Nort, I'm going to come to you, if I can see you.
Speak to me now.
All right. Now, Nort, we went on a certain train trip to Bloemfontein, and you put the fear of God into me on that trip, up and down to, I think it was Bloemfontein, and I still haven't recovered. Did you have any other guys with you in a cabin over a period that you harassed like you harassed me?
I think this is one of the best, because Neil de Kock returns from injury after being a Springbok. So he's been in a very sort of confined environment. The man's not going out a lot. He hasn't experienced proper tours. He now returns to Maties and comes on the dreaded Bloemfontein trip. So the trip there is always pretty sedate, not a hell of a lot going on. The trip going home is pretty different. And Niles, I don't know how it happened, but you lost your bag. I mean, your whole bag just seemed to disappear somewhere close to Daar. And I'll never forget getting off the train in Stellenbosch with your girlfriend, who's now your dear wife, looking at you saying, "Where's your kits and why are you barefoot?" So I don't know who could have stolen your stuff in the night, but I do know that some guy outside Daar has found a wonderful bag with some boots, shoes, a lot of kits.
Yeah. Listen, it was my baptism of fire on a trip with you in a cab. I think Jan Lorenz was one of the guys in the cabin with us. And it was a case of drink this 11 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours out from Cape Town or from Stellenbosch. And me refusing to drink anything, I lost about half my possessions. Luckily, I had a boot sponsor notes, so I could replace my boots. So,
being a Springbok, you could go and get all your kit back here.
Yeah. Something like that. Schalk Burger, did you have something similar on that train to Bloem? I'm sure there's a lot of train stories.
So we're obviously hanging out with the younger guys. Just in the beginning, because we weren't too comfortable around the older folks, but we had to make our way to the bar, after all our stash ran out. And then I think about my 10th run to the bar, I got hooked straight left into a little cabin. And similar. Everything I had was flying out the window. A lot of top bags was flying out the window. Also, half-drank beers was flying out the window. So God forbid sitting downwind from there, you would have been in massive trouble. But that was really the introduction to all the old manner, which was quite lekker. It was an awesome trip. Bloemfontein was my one and only away trip with the Maties, and we got to Worcester. I got to Worcester where I realized, okay, my sleeping bag's gone, my cushion's gone, my kit bag's gone, everything's gone. It's time for a power nap. And jeepers, it's a long route from Worcester to Stellenbosch, and then I saw Kobus Maties, so his fellow Wellingtoner, walking out, and his old man was sitting in the double cab pickup just outside the train station. And he said, "Kobus, waar toe gaan jy?" He said, No, I'm getting into the bakkie. So I jumped into the back of the double cab bakkie in the back here on the pickup side. So I had a little dos, but the dos wasn't long enough. So arrived at my parents' farm, whatever it was, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, still absolutely flying. So it was a good trip. The kind of trip I can relate to. Also the fact that I drank about 8 to 12 lagers the night before the game seemed to stand me in good stead. So I sort of just hang on to that tradition for the large majority of my career.
Until your retirement.
Until my retirement,
It served you well.
No, it's good work. Oil, when you're young, you don't need a lot of oil in the joints. All the grease nipples are ready for it. And when you get a little bit older, you need a bit of oil to loosen up the joints and start warming up the night before. And it was always, especially to the left end of my career, was a couple of glasses of wine. And the UK was especially nice because a lot of the guys made the trip down by bus the night before, and then a lot of South Africans when I was there, so always used to host a braai, whether it was with the European guys, a lot of South Africans in France, or the guys based in England, and everyone sort of similar approach to the game. Have a braai, which was scarce, especially winter months. It's hard over there, but also have a nice bottle of wine, or share a couple of cold lagers the night before. And the funniest thing is the next day you just fly into each other. There's no holding back the next day, but it's nice to catch up to the guys because modern day rugby, there's no time afterwards. No one's having beers afterwards. Everyone's got their schedule to get to your drive back home, and which is a pity. We started off with nice functions and ended up with no functions after the games.
Yeah, and I suppose that's gets me to speak to Sam. Sam, if I can call on you, did you find that that's what happened, in your years of playing, that it was pretty professional? I suppose Craig has just alluded to it, that these sort of trips, it was in and out. You got to do a job. It's the fun side of things was sort of put on the side. You had to find other time outside of either side of the game to do that.
Yeah, I think it definitely did get a whole lot more professional. But I think as a Marty, you've always got time for a cold one just to share with your buggers. I remember in 2011 talking about the Bloom trip. We didn't have it back then, but in 2011, before the club champs, because we were hosting it that year, the club organized sort of a adventure race for 5 different groups. And one group was sent to Worcester, another group was sent to Hermanus. I was part of that group. And then I can't remember the other guys, but we were sent around the Western Cape to sort of do like certain tasks, like go to a particular wine farm and have a tasting. We were going to Hermanus, so we also went to Darling to go have a tasting at the Darling Brew. We had to eat lunch at a particular farm or whatever. And then we ended up at Francois' place, his parents' place in Hermanus. We stayed over there the night and then came back the next day. But in terms of just whenever you are in the Western Cape and you meet up with boys, we're walking around with the miniature version of Donny Craven, and you have to take pictures at each of those events. So we ended up in this place in Hermanus, and the next day, Francois' mom had organized a whale watching cruise, but early in the morning, like 5 or so in the morning. And that night, we ended up somewhere in Hermanus. I can't remember the place where it was called. And we met up with some old boys, some alumni of the college, and that just turned one thing into another. There were pink drinks involved. It was just a mess. So we ended up actually not going for the whale watching. And then in the morning, Flo's mom was like, "Oh, but what happened to the trip?" And we're like, "No, we really couldn't." But yeah, it does get a lot more professional. But there's still time. The club still makes time to make sure that we socialize. Chris has been saying that there's always a couple of beers in the changing room after games or whatever, but that sort of camaraderie thing is still very much there, and it's very relevant. What makes us so close as a fraternity, as a rugby fraternity, is that everyone has time for each other, which actually translates on the field.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's brilliant. I think that's the beauty of rugby. I think it's quite unique to Stellenbosch as well, particularly. North, there's a question from Sports Boss here saying, what makes Maties different or better potentially than other universities?
That should be a very obvious question to the man. That's a joke. But to explain it, I mean, Maties is just special because of the town. I mean, you've got everything here. You've got the best facilities, you've got the best spot, you've got the most amazing countryside around you. There's so much to do. And I think we're also unique because this place has always just been accepting. If you're a good guy and you fit into the system, that's great. And that's how the club has always been. There's never been issues about anything. And I think that's kind of what's separated Stellenbosch from a lot of the rest, is that there's very few of the politics. There's very few of all the other dramas. It's simply, are you a good guy? And if you are a good guy, then you're going to fit in. I mean, I came here as one of the first kind of Roynecks in the beginning. What should have been tough was absolutely brilliant. I got given a lot of gears because I couldn't speak a word of Afrikaans. I mean, my jokes that I had to make in Afrikaans didn't make any sense. But the point of the matter was, as long as you were fun, you wanted to fit in, you were a good team man, then everything was great. And I think that's really what separated the place, and exactly what Sam said now, that's what's continued. I met a lot of the young guys through Drickus handing over jerseys and stuff, and not a lot's changed. It's very similar thinking people, no politics, just let's look after each other and let's make sure that the club's put first.
Brilliant. I think it's testimony to the club if you go through some of the names that you mentioned earlier, that they're still involved and they still want to be heavily involved. And even if it's on their own time, they still want to contribute and make a difference and maintain what the club has achieved over the years, but not on the field, but exactly off the field as well. So it's a very important point to you guys, just to stress again why we're together. It's this Train for Fees initiative that Hans spoke about earlier. So I'm sure they're going to pull it up on the screen again, Hans, anytime soon. Some of that information, if we could, Henlu, for the guys listening, and passing that on to friends. And we're trying to get to that R1 million mark. So just a reminder why we're doing this. And important to mention that all the guys on the panel, in some way, shape, or form, benefited from a beneficiary or a grant or some kind of support, rather, to sustain our studies and get through our studies, and also give us the opportunity to play for this great club and for this great university. So let's try and make this opportunity open to these other people and students who fall on hard times, and just dig into your pockets. I know, Norts, that you said you were contributing $500, I think it was, last night. I said that I'd match that. And we're going to put the guys under pressure, aren't you, to try and contribute?
Most definitely. So my business is also gonna throw $1,000 at the problem, and hopefully by the end we can raise the missing money. I think Hans can come in and tell us, but I think there's $200,000 still to go, and I think the aim out of this whole story is to make up that missing amount.
I think what you said was, we're just around just shy of $1 million. We're trying to get up to that R1 million mark. So, guys, if you can, please contribute and do what you can to hit that mark, hopefully in the 6 days that is left on this drive for Train for Fees. There's a question from the group to Craig. Craig, one of the guys have asked, how important are studies to you? And how important is it for you to continue your studies, complete your studies while you looking to play professional rugby?
Obviously it's really important. My time, Maties, I won't say I didn't study much, but I took a bit longer to do the studying part. But I'm completing my degree this year or early next year, that I will be completing my degree. But I think I potentially know who posted that question. But this has been an ongoing story since I've left Maties and gone on to play professional rugby. So it's a chip that I still have on my shoulder to complete.
Yeah. Listen, I've got no doubt that you're going to get there, man. So, listen, Sam, you in the teaching profession?
Yeah, that's correct, Neil.
Yeah, and you am I correct in saying you're not playing anymore? So you sustained an injury.
Yes. Well, I tore my Achilles tendon last year around July, and I haven't been able to play. But I mean, with the COVID and all of that, not much has been done in terms of club play. It's only professionals that are actually training. But heavy into my coaching because I do teach, and I really look forward to doing a lot more in that sphere.
Excellent, man. And it's at primary school level?
Yes, at the moment I'm at Dale Junior, coaching under 9s and under 12s at the school. So that's where it's at the moment. It's quite unbelievable how the turnaround, from playing and seeking to play professionally and actually enjoying coaching just as much, if not more, actually.
It's great that you discovered that love and giving back. So that's awesome. You must be some proper talent out there as well. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
You're going to sort of groom them for Maties, eh? Do some good work there for that. Yeah.
Sure.
Chris Norton, I got a question from Mr. Hallwell asking you about your Marienthal trip.
The Marienthal trip was like the Bloem trip, another highlight that nobody can really remember a lot. But one of the greatest... But one of the greatest moments on the Marienthal trip has to be Lucas de Kock. If you eventually did about 10 of them, you got excused from the railway bus, and then you got put into the tiny bus with Kapok and Jakkals. And Lucas de Kock, as usual, was pouring himself his normal Richelieus at the back of the bus. And eventually Janneman could take no more of him when he got like halfway through the bottle. So he said, Lucas, wanneer gaan jy ophou sy? So he said, no, I promise you, Janneman, when we get to the border, it's done. It's all over. So we got through the border, get through on the little bus. Janneman's now happy. Lucas is done. Next thing, out comes the Richelieu guy and starts pouring another. Janneman turns to Lucas and says, Lucas, jy het gesê, man, as die grens, gaan jy ophou. So he said, ek het nie gesê wat die grens nie. And I think that summed up the Marienthal trips. It was a very long drive and a lot of fun to get there.
Fantastic, man. Is Mr. Newman with us now? Morgan Newman?
Not yet.
Jeepers, is he still? Does he know that it's 7:15 now? This is Hammy's time. Morgan? No, he's not here. Schalk Burger.
I'm here, Nalzi.
How's it? Listen, very, very quickly, without trying to get too serious, because we want to keep focusing on our time at university and some of the coaches that you played with and played under and some of the players. But do you think that this rugby championship is going to take place in less than 30 seconds?
No. I think actually from a South African perspective, you, Rassie or Jock, Nino, but I think you probably hope it doesn't take place. Because I just think we're just going to be off pace a little bit, because, if it happens, whenever it's going to happen, I don't think we've got enough time to prepare our players. The best time to play is like the All Blacks will be now, or the Wallabies will be now, where, you've just played they played 6 games each, and they're playing a north-south game, back and forth, a bit of trial matches. They're going to be sharp. I think, it takes you a while to be battle-hardened. Now, so you can do a preseason as long as you want to. That first game, test match intensity, there's always a lift in everything. And if the body's not conditioned for it, unfortunately, the mind's not either. So hopefully for us, it doesn't take place. But I do think there's a strong chance that we might have a November tour, which might be a good one for us to go, providing we play a Curry Cup or, similar to the New Zealand Aotearoa or the league they played in Australia.
Okay, yeah. I think you're right. I think it's probably in our best interest to try and dodge that bullet, but I think commercially we might be dictated to otherwise. But anyway, let's see. Scala, while you're on, I've just had a question from one of the guys out there. They said, what about the respect Maties have overseas? They've got that international respect. Do you think it's still the same?
Yeah, I think, big clubs like Maties or big franchises you play for, or your national side like the Springboks, or the oldest club in the world, the Barbarians, or the Lions that's coming here next year, which is the only big tour that still exists in rugby. I mean, those things, their reputation go way beyond us or anything. People respect it, people know about it, people talk about it, they read about it. The nice thing about playing, growing up in Cape Town, my old man went through the same journey. You go through this own journey, and you realize that you're only a custodian of that jersey for a specific time, and you've got to do it proud, because there's so many great players who's gone before you. There's so many great players that's come after you in that jersey. So it's just spectacular when you actually get the chance to play for Maties. Going on a tour with Maties. It's one of the great clubs in the world, one of the biggest clubs in the world, one of the oldest clubs, and the club's doing a phenomenal job by keeping up that reputation. Unfortunately, time's changing now. The old long tours are gone. This varsity club rugby has taken a bit of a backseat. But I think, if anything, COVID-19 has taught us that we've got to go back to a village mentality. Go back to instead of just ordering something online, which has become more expensive and more difficult to come, treasure what's close to home. And hopefully that's a kickstart for us to treasure club rugby again. Treasure Western Province, treasure the Springboks instead of just watching whatever's overseas. Go to the stadiums. So I think maybe this is actually can be the catalyst for us to restart and get big crowds again. Not only varsity cup, but club rugby the rest of the year. So, I know for a fact that is where the focus will have to be. If you think of the Springboks now, the focus will have to be in, getting schoolboy rugby aligned, getting university rugby aligned. Everything's got to start from the bottom up. But it's an awesome privilege to always be involved with Maties and be associated with Maties forever. Being a Maties Springbok, it's stuff you never thought you'll achieve when you were younger.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we should look at it as a golden opportunity, really, off the back of something pretty negative, to be able to do something like that and start developing our own again. So, Norts, if I can come back to you quickly, You mentioned Wim Kirky earlier. Now, he's a legend of a man that obviously sits in everyone's memory. What is it about him that made him so special as a coach and I suppose as a man and a developer of people?
You know, the guy was just completely different. You know, we were kind of used to being ordered around and being told what to do. And I think the old man just had a completely different attitude. It was about, you know, you're either going to pitch up, and if you want to do stuff, that's great. And if you don't, then go somewhere else. And that's why everybody really respected the man. You know, it was a very simple attitude of, I'll put everything in front of you. I'll help you guys get to the top. And if you want to do it, then do it. And he didn't conform. You know, I mean, I'll never forget. We go to Argentina, and we arrived. We were about to play against Tucumán, and the Springboks have had this massive fight the week before us. And the old man's getting interviewed on TV, and they say to him, Mr. Kirkpatrick, you think there will be a big fight against Maties like Springboks? And, you know, any other guy would have said, well, I'm not sure, and, you know, I really hope not. And the old man turned to the reporter and said, listen, if you want it, you're going to get it. You wouldn't have asked the question if you didn't want it, so you're going to get it. So, of course, we had a massive brawl, and a game of rugby broke out in between the boxing against Tucumán, and the old man cheated up, but that's who he was. He was a no-nonsense. He didn't tolerate fools easily, and we had the best of times. And the greatest memories that I've got of that guy as well is that he just, when there was a team story, he was always there. You know, it was after the game, he came out, he was there to the end. He never went home. It was the best, honestly, the best 10 years of rugby of my life playing with that old man.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's many guys who are listening to this at the moment who will agree with you, and who've also got their own personal stories about him, yeah, myself included. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned certain characters that stick out to you. And you know, as Kirky was a coach when I was a really young guy coming to the mix, just by hook or by crook, you know, with injuries happening. But I also remember my first training run with the first team, and you were involved there. But Louis at that stage, Louis Blom was the captain, and I think it was just prior to a semi-final club champs. And, you know, he trained with his mouth guard in, even though it was captain's run, there was no contact. And I think Lyle had come off. Yeah, Lyle had come off, he tweaked his hammy or something, he had a tight hammy, and I'd gone on, and I didn't know one move. And the first two moves that we had to run through, and you know, captain's runs always has to be perfect. I got the first two things wrong, went left when I should have gone right, or I got it wrong. And he stopped the whole session. And you guys won't remember this, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And he stared down at me, standing above me, spit flying everywhere, telling me, luister jou klein kak, if you don't want to learn your moves, then you can F off. And I thought to myself, what an absolute chop. And I went home and I bitched and I moaned and I said, yes, that Louis Blom, mate. But I tell you what, I think what it did was it just drove through my soul in terms of how special this club was. That don't think you're going to come here and just get by and do all right, but that you've got a responsibility here. You wear this jersey, you're going to do it well. And, you know, if I look back, and I'm so fond of Louis Blom to this day, you know, when I see him, it's wonderful. I always remind him about that story because I hated that guy for about the first 3 weeks that I knew him. It did help that I think that we won the club champs that year. So if we had lost it, it wouldn't have been a good thing. But I think the importance to the club for someone like that sort of rubbed off on me. And I suppose Kirky's the same, and guys like you and Sean and Charles and guys who've been around. And I suppose that says a lot about the club moving forward.
Yeah, you also got off easy because he actually sent off Greiling Wademan famously in a game. We were playing and Greiling was buggering it up and his passes weren't great, and Louis binned him. He will be the only player that was ever sent from the field without any injury. He said to Louis, nee, that's not verkeerd. He said, ja, daar is iets verkeerd. Jy's af. And that was the end of Greiling. So you got off lucky, boy.
Yeah, I got off lucky. Another great character in the Maties setup. Morgan Newman, I think he is eventually with us. Morgan.
Nowsy, how's it, man?
Jeepers, I don't know. You know, these Oaks, these Hammies coaches, you rock up at 23 minutes past 7, you got 7 minutes left, and now you arrive. I have already introduced you to the group. No, I know you're busy, man.
Great.
I've introduced
Sorry, I
you
missed
to
the
group.
memo. I didn't have my Martin.
Yeah, don't worry, man. It's all right. We had to dig deep for these ones. Yours is far more recent. But
mine is
listen,
extreme story enough. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Listen, while we've at least got 5 minutes of your time, you know, we wanted to pick your brain as well and talk to you very briefly about some of the memories and I suppose in a way in which Maties provided you a stepping stone, an opportunity for a rugby career, and some of the characters that you rubbed shoulders with, and maybe some of the tours you went on. I know you went to Melrose. I think you were one of the lucky ones to experience Melrose in the sevens. Just very briefly, a bit of your time. You played under Sean, I think it was.
Yeah. So look, I mean, a little Soti from Bishops rocked up at Maties. That's correct. Went to Helderberg, so the Republic of Helderberg, you know. And I played Courses Rugby, first year's tournament, and from there, Sean Rue and Kirky. Actually, I heard you guys talking a bit of sharing a bit of stories about Kirky. Pass. That's the only thing I say about it when it comes to Kirky. Yeah. But so look, I mean, that was it. Yeah, fantastic. You know, the best rugby memories, without a doubt, and I say this quite proudly, definitely lie down in Stellenbosch, there below the mountain. I mean, cheapest from playing first year varsity cup. I think I arrived there and varsity cup had just kicked off or just arrived, and you know, we won. I think we won the tournament for the first couple of 3 or 4 years in a row or something, and just so unbelievable. I mean, every single rugby memory that I talk of. Yes, I was very fortunate to play professional like yourself and a number of other guys, but I mean the real way rugby, the love of rugby really took off and where it still is today. I mean, I still walk to the DC, the old Donny Craven, and even if I'm there in the black, unfortunately in the black, yellow, and red of Hammies, there is still something just so special. You still want to walk out the tunnel and walk left. I mean, it's just so natural, you know, to do that. So unbelievable club. I mean, it will forever hold a special place in my heart. And someday, hopefully, I'll return there back in the maroon somehow. Maybe as a coach one day. I suppose that'll be the end goal for me. That's coaching now.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, Morgs, I mean, you as a coach, you would have taken a lot what you took from Stellenbosch, I'm sure, and sort of put that into your own coaching philosophy in many ways, whether it be under Kirky or whoever you experienced at your time at Stellenbosch, and taking that to Hammies. And then who knows, it might go full circle. Yeah.
The rugby ethos that Hammies taught me, that Stellenbosch taught me, that I've taken to Hammies now, has just been, I mean, there's just something different about a Maties rugby player. And I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. And now as a coach, I'm seeing it even more so than ever. There's just something so special about a group of Maties men that have played together, that have come through the ranks at Maties. You know, they see the game differently. They see how, you know, what happens between the four white lines and what happens outside of it. You know, how you can marry the two, play great, fantastic rugby, yet still find the social element to make sure there's a gees and make sure the tours are as exciting as ever. You know, and I mean, I was lucky enough to play with a lot of big legends at Maties. But I mean, you know, being a youngster and Justin Swart, who had played hundreds of games for Western Province and was a Springbok, and you would come down and play for Maties, and he'd do it so proudly. You know, would do it like he's playing for the Stormers. For me, that in itself just epitomized what the club stood for. Through, you know, guys were prepared to go from professional setups, come down and fit right in and be 100% part of it and buy completely into the culture. You know, Sean Rue, a quick story for you, but Sean Rue had this culture of, when you came back from Province, you never walked into a maroon jersey. You'd have to go and either walk into that yellow jersey of the Vic side or whatever it was. And one day I came back from Province, you know, Dick Trill being the main O, and come back and you expect to just put on a pink jersey, start practice with the first side, and off you go. And Sean Rue was like, no, my friend, Vics are training on the other side. And that just epitomized what the club stands for. I mean, you know, it's a jersey that's earned. You know, just not just any Vic Tom and Harry wears a Maties jersey. And long way to continue. I mean, jeepers, the guys that are there today, I think, You know, I played with a bunch of senior guys, older guys, the Benny Boysons and Michael Lopes of this world. And you know, that's not there anymore. But I hope that the young guys that are there are still instilling that sense of pride and what the jersey really stands for, because the Maties jersey does hold. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for the jersey, even though I'm not there anymore.
Yeah, spot on, Morgan. Thanks for that. That's brilliant, man. Listen, I'm going to go on to Craig. I'm going to go around the panel and just some closing thoughts from each of you, and also to thank you for your time. Craig Barry, is he still with us?
Yes, Neil.
There he is, man. How's it, man? Listen, firstly, I want to wish you well. Hopefully this pandemic is over soon, that you can get back on the pitch and that you can do what you do best. But maybe just some closing thoughts for you and the importance of Train for Fees and this initiative.
Yeah, for me personally, I've received the opportunity from Maties to be able to study and also to play. And when I started my time at Maties, I've been in a difficult space, having had injuries after school and not being able to pursue a professional career straight out of school. And Maties have bridged that gap for me, being able to study and also to pursue a career in rugby. And I'm forever grateful for the opportunity. I mean, I've been at Maties on a full bursary all the years that I've been there. So I think it's really important, the initiative that's going on at the moment, you know, being able to provide other players the opportunity, you know, whether to go professional or to pursue other career through the program that they will install themselves through studying. But yeah, I think it's a really important initiative, and I'm forever grateful for the opportunity I've received from the rugby club, and I will always cherish the memories that I've made there.
Excellent, Craig. Listen, you've given the club a lot of good memories as well. So good luck to you going forward. We'll be keeping a close eye on you. And thanks a lot for being with us tonight. And that's from everyone who's been on the webinar. To Sam.
Thank you.
You there? Listen, Sam, I'd love some closing thoughts from you. And I wanted to thank you in advance for also being with us tonight, and obviously all the contributions that you made to Stellenbosch over the years. And maybe just some closing thoughts from you before you head off.
Yeah, just a word of encouragement to the people who are watching this webinar. I think no one has been able to prepare for a thing like COVID. It's stressful times and people handle it in different ways. But if you know that at the end of the day, you can still study and you can still have a future, whether it be on the field or off the field, and there's some way that you can help, I do implore people to get along and do that. And to Maties, thank you for actually hosting this type of thing. It's been fantastic.
Excellent, Sam, and good luck on your side, and keep building those little junior rugby players there, and good luck in the coaching career as well.
100%. Thanks very much, Neil.
Sure, man. Morgan, it's hello and goodbye. So I'm going to come to you again. I mean, you're a 7-minute man. So I'll give you the opportunity as well to close off and also thank you for your time, even though it was only so short.
Yeah, once again, my apologies. Sorry, man. Some connection issues, but nonetheless, yeah, good to be here. Thank you so much. And yeah, what a fantastic initiative. I must just reiterate that. I think, you know, if we can help other youngsters have the opportunity that myself, Sam, Craig, and the list goes on, got, then without a doubt, I think we need to try and pull together and really show when times are tough how the maroon jersey can keep people together. So fantastic initiative. Thank you for having me, and let's do it again. I mean, hopefully we can, you know, this can be the beginning of many webinars where we can hear stories, share some insight, and also hopefully benefit the youngsters in the future.
Fantastic, Moors. It's great to see you, and thanks for being with us. Schalk Burger. Everyone tries to epitomize Schalk Burger, the guy who Dan Carter says is probably the most brutal player he's ever played against. So we just want to thank you for your time and give you the opportunity to have a final word as well.
Thanks, Nalzi. Obviously, I've been retired for long enough that I start getting better. You know the story. The longer you're retired, the better we get. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and yeah, echo all the thoughts of the other boys on the panel. And above all, you know, let's have fun whilst doing that. I mentioned earlier that, you know, what this pandemic has done is, you know, have the village mentality and focus on things that you hold dear to your heart. And Maties are one of those. You know, Maties is a stepping stone for so many of our great players, but also a place we want to go back to and have fond memories. So long may it last. And I can't wait for, rugby to start up again and go watch it, and especially at the old Donny Craven. I'm a traditionalist, so these old stadiums mean something to me. Donny Craven does, so does Newlands. Unfortunately, I don't think Newlands is going to have the send-off it deserves, but, who knows, thank you. Lovely seeing all you guys. And Niles, you still look as young as ever, and Nort, you're getting older by the second, my friend.
Great, Sculler.
Bastard.
Thanks a lot, Sculler. Listen, you've given everyone a lot of great memories. I know you got a lot of good memories from the club as well. So thanks a lot for your time tonight and being with us.
Yes,
and then last but not least, we're going to pull over to Mr. Norton. Nort, I know you have got this club so close to your heart, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to finish off and close off for the panel.
Yeah, first of all, Sculler can't tease me about getting old, because I've definitely got more hair than he has. Wilson has lost his name. We're definitely going to have to rename him Kojak after what we've just witnessed. But for everybody who's joined us, thanks so much. I think the main thing is the Train for Fees initiative is absolutely brilliant. It's exactly what we had. We were all given unbelievable opportunities through the club. We experienced amazing things through Maties because of the club. And the Train for Fees thing is basically saying a lot of people have fallen on hard times. Please help out. You don't have to be a Matie. You can be anybody out there who wants to support, who wants to get people an education, and wants to help a great initiative that's going to get people through a very difficult patch. So hopefully everybody's going to join hands. And I think it's fantastic to see the panel tonight. This is what makes Maties. It's a completely different bunch of folk from many different cultures that have all come together. And that's what our country is about. And that's hopefully what the Train for Fees things will do as well, is pull everybody together and help people that really need it the most. But thanks, guys. It's been brilliant. And Wilson, you keep up, and we're going to get you a sew-in from Shane Warne, definitely.
Thanks very much. Get the old toupee going. It's gone bold, and then all of a sudden, next month they're bowling into the wind with a full mop of hair. Think Jock Cullis. Don't
Listen,
worry,
Norts.
I won't go that way. I'm not that soft. Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, next time we're not doing this webinar, we're getting together again.
Yeah, that'll be his first prize there. So let's see if I can just close off. Thank you very much to the panel for making up time tonight. And I also want to thank everybody who did contribute. And I'm very happy to say that some donations have been forthcoming from the panel, or not from the panel, from the guests tonight. So thank you to everyone who has donated and contributed. Hans, if we can, for the last 30 seconds, perhaps pull up that Train for Fees detail. And just one final look there, guys. You can always screenshot that. And just as a reminder, there's 6 more days in which we can still contribute to Train for Fees. So please, you don't have to be a Matie or an ex-Matie. It can be anyone. It can be your grandmother. It can be your little niece, whoever you can find to donate to this. And hopefully through this, we'll be able to either develop the next Schalk Burger, or at least give guys the opportunity to experience what we experience and be a part of an unbelievable club that will leave them with memories for a very, very long time. So I want to thank everybody. Screenshot this before we log off. Thank you again to the panel, and thanks for everyone for joining. We'll see you again soon, and take care. Next time we'll be in person. Cheers.